Hello, welcome to another session um, with me, David Walker, business attorney, presented by Community Navigator, serving small businesses in South Fulton County. This program is in partnership with the SBA and Select Fulton and Greater South Fulton Chamber of Commerce. This is part two to a previous video um, that I had on investors and is your company investor ready? In part one, we went through some profiles of an investor. Now in part two, we're going to start to talk about how much money do you need. Um, we'll get to some of the details, but before we go any further, I need to, what do you say, thank our sponsors, the SBA, Select Fulton, and Greater South Fulton. This is a great program, Community Navigator. It's coming up on 1 year. And in this program, the SBA, through these partnerships, have brought in professional technical service providers like myself as the attorney and other technical service providers to provide you with direct content as well as one-on-one sessions. So I'm paid to provide services to you. And this is one of the services. We have in-person academies as well as some one-on-one sessions that you can register for. All of it is available through navigatefc.com, which you'll see throughout these slides. So on to the magic. My role as a business attorney is to sort of help people to navigate who are looking to raise capital to navigate that course. How do I get from point A to point B? And a lot of times when people go out to raise capital, they have a lot of questions about how, right? I mean, people telling them all the time, you should just do an investment raise. You should just go do an equity crowdfunding. You should just go get some investors. And people are sitting there with businesses that are doing okay, but they could sure use some help and some capital injection to kind of move it to the next level. And they're just completely overwhelmed. And, one of the things they do is they run to get a loan. Oh, I need an SBA loan. I mean, and there's places out there, banks and processes we can help you direct you towards the SBA loan. But there's a scenario in which you can raise money and get money for your business with investors and people who will willingly put money in your investment to make a higher profit. And that's what we're going to touch on through these series. Is really how do we position our businesses to be able to raise capital? Last session, part one, we went over some investor characteristics. And I'm not going to go through details in this, but you have to understand who your audience is when you talk to an investor. And this was just to kind of reset your mind and take it off your business owner helmet and putting on your investor helmet and realizing these are the questions that I care about as an investor. And if you understand who your audience is and what they're motivated by, then you'll get a better chance of connecting with them to be able to sell your idea. So let's get into today's session. So if you're raising money, you have to answer questions to investors. And money from investors can come in any form, in any person. So what do I mean? You might have a cousin, a brother, mother, father who are thinking about investing. You might have colleagues, people in your industry who are thinking about investing. You might have investment bankers, banks, all the way up to venture capitalists. All of these people are investors, potential investors in your business, and they all want you to answer 4 questions. Okay. These are the 4 questions that every single investor that you talk to want to know. The first one is, what do you do? You just assume people know what you do. They don't. So I'll use my bottled water company as an example, Positivity Alkaline Water, right? So people say, what do you do? I own a bottled water company. So don't forget, people don't always know what you do. It's always good to remind them. The second thing is, why are you good at it, right? So in my case, I own a bottled water company, and we're the only bottled water company offering 20-cent bottle return for a closed loop bottled water system. And we've been increasing our bottled water collection over the year. Or our revenue is tripled over the year. You have to let people know why you're good at something. If you just tell them, hey, I'm a painter, like, what makes you a great painter? Did you, paint a cathedral? Did you paint a shed? So you have to make sure you brag on yourself a little bit so that people can know who they're dealing with, not just any painter, not just any bottled water company. These are the kind of things that we forget, but people don't know all the time. So you got to tell them why you're good at what you do. So these two questions, you're probably thinking, if there's four, I got these two down pat. Like this is a no brainer. Questions 3 and 4 are the ones that I usually have to deal with the most with clients. Number 3 is how much money do you need, which we're going to talk about today. And number 4 is what does the investor get for investing, which we are not going to talk about today because that is a loaded question and it needs its own part. So, how much money do you need? Right? That's sort of the question that I ask people, and I say, well, if you are looking to invest and you go to dinner with Warren Buffett, and I say to you, hey, we're going to go to dinner with Warren Buffett tonight. I'm your attorney. What are you going to say to Warren Buffett? Because he got a lot of money. And it's like, well, I don't know. Like, how much money do you need? And most people answer, I don't know, or about 50,000 or 100,000, and they don't realize how bad that sounds. So I explain to you, if we go in there and talk to Warren Buffett, and we tell him you need $100,000, and it just so happens that he says, hey, tomorrow in your business bank account that has $700 in it, I'm going to wire $100,000, and your business bank account will have $100,700 in it. What are you going to do tomorrow? And if your answer is, I have to find a person, or I have to look for this machine, or I have to do some other things so that money's just sitting there, then he's going to take it back and say, well, tell you what, I'll leave it in my account until you're ready. However, if you have a process for where it'll get spent quickly and how it will turn you into a profit or some other event, and you're able to rattle that off at the top of your head, then that's very attractive because now you're investor ready. Now the money has already been allocated and it's ready to be spent. So that's what we're going to talk about. How do we figure out how much money do we need? So I try to tell people, think about how much money you're going to spend in the first 30 to 60 days, right? So if you were to get that $100,000 tomorrow in your bank account, think about where would you have to spend the money tomorrow. So if today is Tuesday and tomorrow is Wednesday, I want you to tell me, if I had $100,000 in my account, what would I do on Wednesday? If there's anything you have to research, then research it now, today, right? Do that now because that's free. It doesn't take any time. So if you're looking at a building, they'll tell me I have a building downtown. Call that building, talk to the broker, ask them how much the building is. If it's being leased, ask them how much the rent is. And then you will say, oh, tomorrow, Dave, I will put $5,000 down on a deposit and I will pay my first month rent of $2,500 at so-and-so acres located at 123 Main Street. Good, good. What else you need to do tomorrow? Okay, now that I have the keys, I'll need this equipment. Where's the equipment coming from? I have to place an order. It's being made in China or it's being made in Florida. Okay, we got to put a deposit down for that. That goes on the list. What else you need? I need to hire somebody. Well, you're not going to pay them a salary tomorrow, are you? No, that is not going on the list. Are you going to take money out for yourself? Yeah, eventually, Mr. Walker. Yeah, I would need some money for myself. Okay, that's your salary as well, but that's not going to get taken out tomorrow. Some of it. Okay, write that down. If you need money personally for something that you need to do to keep the business open, put that down on your list of your first 30 to 60 days. But you have to start to imagine that money's in my account and where am I going to spend it? So start mentally spending and creating a wish list, if you will, of things that you might need to do. The money that's coming to this account that you're going to get from the investor, it has to last, right? And the question is, how long does it have to last? Well, you got to answer that question, right? What are some of the events that it has to last until? Well, it has to last until you make enough money to run the business itself, right? Sometimes people are losing money. And once you give me this money, Mr. Buffett. I'll be able to use it, get the place, buy some equipment, and I should be profitable in about 6 months because I'm going to lose money, but then I'm going to start making money from all of our investment. So knowing when you're going to return a profit when you get that 100,000, because if you get that 100,000, it's going to all spend out and it's never going to make money. That's not good. So your bank account might be at 100,000, goes down to 10, but you want to show how it's going to start to go back up 15, 20, 25, 30. So you have to know what has to happen in your business for it to become significantly profitable. But you need to have enough money to get to that point. So if you're like, oh wow, it's going to take me about 7 or 8 months, maybe 100,000 is not enough. And you got to know that's what you have to think through. Like, until when? Until when? Another milestone is somebody's going to buy your business. Okay, so this 100,000, I can make my business more attractive. I can get some more office space, get a trademark, whatever, and then someone's going to buy my business. So, Mr. Buffett, I need 100,000 and keep me up until somebody buys the business. I'm going to have it on the market. That's a reasonable milestone for an investor. And lastly, until I'm going to ask the investors for more money. And so in some businesses like apps and things like that that take a long time to develop and a long time to investors, they have different investor rounds. So you have an early investor, then another investor. Each time you have an investor round, you're selling off a piece of your company. So if an investor is just one piece or the early investor and what will be a lot of investors down the line, that's okay to say that. It really is. I mean, there's a lot of investors that say, hey, I understand I'm an early stage investor. And if that's what you're looking for as an early stage investor, say it. Say, oh, Mr. Buffett, I'm going to need way more than 100,000, probably like 10 million. But 100,000 gets me through this next moment, moves my business along. And then in the fall or some other time, I'll be able to go ahead and bring in more investors later. So you will have investors that come in after you. Now, obviously, everybody who comes in after is supposed to pay a higher price than Mr. Buffett, right? You don't want to be the first one and pay the highest price, and then everybody else gets a lesser price. So you want to have confidence that the value of the business will be worth a lot more later when these other investors come in than it is right now. But having a plan on this is how I'm going to spend the money. This is where it's going to go. This is when I become profitable. You know, if you gave me this money by in 6 months, I'll be profitable. Give me this money in 9 months, I'm going to sell my business. If you give me this money, I'm going to raise capital in 12 months. We, as the business attorney, help you as the business owner think through how much money you need. And it's a very important that this a time is spent researching this, meaning that you can't just come up with a number like about because about sounds like leave the money in my investor's bank account and not give it to you because you're not sure what you're going to do. Therefore, I try to encourage everybody to create a wish list of expenses with actual prices. So that's fun. Who doesn't want to spend imaginary money? Go out and get a list for everything. I mean, everything you need, from the paper clips, the pencils, the shoe, and just pretend you're writing a list of Santa Claus. Because as you prepare that list, it's going to do two things. One, you're going to see how much money you actually need. And a lot of people underrepresent how much money that they need. But two, it makes you start thinking more about your business. And so you will start to go, you know what, let me go ahead and schedule this call with this attorney, or let me go ahead and schedule this call with this business broker, or let me schedule this call with this equipment manufacturer so I can get some of these numbers down. And you will actually find yourself working on your business. So when I ask you how much money you need, you only have to think about it. You're like, I need $78,467.22. Oh, wow. If a person tells you that, and you're an investor, you will feel good about that. You're like, oh, wow, you really know how much money you need. You're like, yeah, I really thought this through. I just need the wire tomorrow. So you always want to prepare an investor to make them feel like they're ready to take the money tomorrow by giving them real time expenses and real time needs for the money. Some of the money might not get used all up in the first 30 to 60 days, and that's okay. Say that. Say, hey, I'm going to spend about 40, 50,000 in the next 30 to 60 days, but I'm going to lose $5,000 a month until I become profitable. These are all things that makes the investor feels like you've thought this out, you need the money, and the money is ready to be placed into an account that can actively go towards something that you're doing. But again, this is a lot of work to figure out how much money you need. Most people will sit down with a CPA or accountant because there are expenses for your business that you're not even thinking about right now, right? I mean, there's insurance. You probably didn't even think about the cost of insurance that's out there. There's licensing fees that you haven't even thought about. So the benefit of sitting down with an accountant is that they can sometimes anticipate some of your expenses, and they might be able to estimate them a little bit better for you, so you don't have to call around and guess. So the idea is that you always want to spend a significant amount of time really looking at how much money you need, and then questioning whether you should take less than that. So you might have a Christmas list. You say 100,000 gets us to our next fundraise or gets us to profitability, and then you start looking at the list. You say, well, I mean, could we get there without this, without that? Yeah, maybe. So then you start getting range. Well, I really need somewhere between 80 at the minimum. I'm not doing this deal without 80,000, and at the maximum 100,000. You have to start to give yourself that leeway, because sometimes people will set a number like 100,000 and don't make it. Still get to maybe 30 or 40. Well, if you know from your analysis you need 100, you probably want to get that 30 or 40 back until you get to 100, as opposed to taking it knowing that it's not enough, and then you end up your business failing and you're writing a bunch of sorry notes to people. So you want to make sure that the money you take is going to be enough. And if it's not enough, tell people, oh, I want to invest 10,000. And say, sorry, it's just not enough. I mean, I do need money, but I'm not going to take your 10 because I'll never be able to get to where I need to go. I need to get to 100. I'll circle you down for 10. Let me go see if I get another 90. If I can, I'll be back. If I can't, I'm sorry. So knowing how much money you need is a very important part. Now, we've talked about this before. You should not just go out soliciting people for money. Don't think because you saw this presentation, you know your 4 questions, that now you're just going to go out asking people for money. Can't do that. There's laws against it. The SEC has laws against it about how you offer securities. So it still needs to be done in a structured setting. These are just high-level fundamental rules that go with raising capital, and assuming, of course, the person you're talking to is qualified to be an investor or an accredited investor into your company or an exempted investor into your company. But there's other levels to this, but this is a significant level in terms of the business part of it. Forget the legal for a second. The business part of how much money am I going to go out and look for and raise? And it has to be thought through. It can't just be a round number. So that's my job as the attorney, is to help you think through that. I want to go back to the other questions. What does the investor get for investing? I'm going to do that part next. But those two go together. If you know how much money you need, you could then start to say, okay, for this amount of money, I can offer you this amount of the company, or I can offer you payback on these terms, because they're tied together. So now you know when you start to make money, when you can start to pay people back. Now you know when you're going to sell off the company, when you can pay off the investor for their ownership interest. So this all ties together, because knowing how much money you need is going to go a long way to making investors feel comfortable that they're going to get their money back and that you've thought this through. So again, I offer these comments today just to say that there's more than one way to sort of put together a plan to raise capital with private investors, but the fundamentals of that plan should center around these 4 items. So how much money you need is a very important part of the process. Go out, take your imaginary checklist and start writing down prices, start to get to a solid number, and then come back and we'll start to talk about what you can offer investors for that number. Anyway, this is Dave Walker from Community Navigator, wishing you a very fantastic day today. There are other videos available on Navigate SF, or actually it's Navigate FC. Either one will take you there. I don't know why this says SF. But take a look at those videos and have a look at some of the other live academy and webinar sessions we'll be putting on through Community Navigator. Again, I am your humble servant, business attorney Dave Walker. It's a pleasure to present this to you, and I look forward to seeing you at our workshops, or maybe a one-on-one session, or at the next video. Thanks. Bye.